Good morning and welcome to our webinar, How to Do Business with the Government by NorCal PTAC. My name is James Forrest. I am a procurement specialist with NorCal PTAC. I'll talk about what PTAC is in a second. Our main presentation today is being given by Thomas Burns, who's a fellow procurement specialist. You will be in excellent hands with him. I'm going to hand things over quickly enough, but I just want to talk about us real quickly as the hosts of the webinar. We are a nonprofit center, a part of a whole network of centers. We're tax funded. We get our money from the federal and state and local governments in order to provide services at no cost to you, and we specialize in government contracts. So if you're new to government contracting, or if you're intermediate, or even if you're advanced, you can apply for our services and we'll help you do all sorts of things. So there's about 96 PTACs nationwide. You can see this map here. This is just California alone. There's 7. Plus the American Indian PTAC, which covers multiple states. Like I said, we don't charge anything, and we're here to help with government contracting, just about anything related with government contracting. In fiscal year 21, PTACs altogether, all 96 centers, helped over 56,000 clients and helped them win more than 24 billion, with a B, in government contracts and subcontracts. So you've come to the right place if you're looking for some assistance. I think that number will grow this year as well. We have our own number for just NorCal PTAC. You can see we are just one center. We cover these 15 counties in green here in Northern California. And in 2021, our clients won more than 500 million, so $500 million in government contracts and subcontracts. So that's a good, healthy share of that. And that's what we're all about. We're about putting your tax dollars back in your pocket, because when you bid on public projects and you're able to perform on them, those projects are funded by your taxes, your business taxes, your personal taxes. And so we want to help out folks who need any sort of help, especially small businesses who need help figuring out this new process. So the way we do it is with one-on-one counseling. That's kind of the bread and butter of what we do. If you have a business that's in our service area here in one of these green counties, you can apply for us, and we will walk you through just about anything related with government contracting. I'll just skip ahead a slide here. We can help with SAM registration, certifications, crafting capability statements, market research. We've got a paid tool called GovSpend that we can offer to you for free. Market to government agencies, proposal review, really just about anything related to government contracting. We don't do loans, financial assistance, startup, business plan, but we have the Small Business Development Center is one of our partner programs that can certainly help you with those things. So that's the one-on-one counseling. You can meet individually with procurement specialists to go over all these topics. We also have a bid matching tool. This is a really cool tool, another thing that we pay for and then we offer to you for free, and it's really valuable. What it does is it'll gather all the information from these different databases on the internet, from multiple different databases, and it's looking for bids that match a criteria that you work out with your procurement specialist that describe what it is your business sells. So if you sell office paper and supplies, then you'll put those keywords into the back end, and then ideally every morning, depending on how your geographic area and your keywords and things, you'll wake up with an email in your inbox, and if there's any opportunities, open competitive bids that have been posted online, it'll be in your inbox ready for you to click on and follow through and prepare your bid for. So that's a really, really, really helpful thing for doing market research and for just staying on top of those opportunities. The third thing I want to mention is that we are always putting on resources and trainings. Today, this morning, this is a good example. We're putting on these regular Introduction to Government Contracting webinars, and we're doing a lot more advanced things. I'll talk about some of our upcoming events in a minute, but you can find all of this, how to get started as a client, to learn more about our bid matching, to learn upcoming trainings, past trainings, resources, things like that, on our website at norcalptac.org. And when you get these slides, this will be hyperlinked, and you can go ahead and click on that. So someone had a question about SoCal, and I just want to point out we do not cover Southern California, but you can look up your local PTAC. You can see there's quite a few PTACs clustered around the Southern California region here. So what I do is just Google the name of your county and PTAC, or you can just look at it here once you get the slides. All right, and if you're not in our service area, actually, you can also use this tool here. That second link there, aptech-us.org/find-a-PTAC. It's got a listing of all the PTACs in the whole country. All right, I won't take up any more of your time. Just a little reminder that if you have any questions for Thomas, please enter them into the Q&A, not the chat, and then we can follow them along. And everyone will be receiving the slides later today. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening to my spiel. I'll hand things over to Thomas. Thomas has been with us for many years, and we're really appreciative to have him and value his expertise. So thanks, Thomas, and break a leg.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to be here. My name is Thomas Burns. I'm one of the procurement specialists. There are 9 of us. And I've been with NorCal PTAC for going on 2 years. As the slide says, I've come from the entrepreneur side. So I have many different businesses that I started, grew, failed, started again, grew, failed, learned quite a bit, and had some limited success with government contracting, but it taught me so much. And what I do with NorCal PTAC, I really enjoy it. We constantly learn and update our own knowledge about what's happening in the government market space. Let's see. My thing is not. Why is it?
If you just click on the screen, you should retake control.
Yeah, let me try it again. There we go. One of the things we wanted to do is just quickly state that all the information that we share with you is update and current to the best of our knowledge. However, things do change very quickly sometimes in the government market space, and something that I talk about today might change within a week or a month. Let's try it this way. There we go. Okay, here's the agenda. We've already talked about what is a PTAC, so we'll get rid of that one, and we'll focus on what is government contracting. We're going to also talk about how to determine if selling is right for you when it comes to whatever your product or service is. Of course, how to get started. A big one is marketing. Once you decide you definitely want to do business with the government, you really want to focus on how to market to the government, because it's different than marketing to the private sector. Where to find bid opportunities and steps for success. And as I go through, I'll try to remember to stop every now and then and see if there's any questions. But if not, I'll also take all your questions at the very end. Okay, so what is government contracting? Essentially, the government does buy pretty much anything and everything you could think about, except for typically the items on the right. Right? These are your tax dollars. So restaurants, bars, entertainment, things that are sold on a retail basis are not ideal and are not going to be purchased from the government. You know, the government's supposed to provide products and services that help us, the community, and they're supposed to purchase those things at the best possible price. So they always buy in bulk, buy wholesale, so they're not going to be buying on a retail level. But barring that, all of the products and services that we can think about are also purchased within the federal government. Now this slide, I like this slide because this really gives you a good representation and understanding of the depth of what one agency can be purchasing. So this is an example of a state prison here in California. And from, what is that, A to W in terms of all the different things, software, they rent equipment. Of course, you have the public works, which is very popular, but they also buy food, clothing, small personal care items. There's a plethora of products and services, and this is a really good example. Also, I just wanted to say that every week we get new clients, and one of the first things they ask is, hey, I'm not sure if this is ideal for government contracting. Can you help me figure that out? And that's one of the first steps we always take is to help our clients understand Where are the opportunities within government? Now, I like this slide also because it really kind of helps you to see how the breakdown works when we're talking about large projects. And when I say large project, I'm thinking a project where the dollar amount is around $1 million or more. And this is a good representation. So you have that agency, and the prime contractor is the one that wins the bid. However, within that contract, there's going to be some kind of requirement from the government that says, look, we want you to manage this contract in a way so that small businesses also get an opportunity, which are called, of course, subcontractors. And if we're dealing with a building as an example, the contractor has the opportunity to say, I'm going to sub out some of the delivery of dirt and gravel. I'm going to sub out some of the plumbing. I'm going to sub out some of the electrical, and I'm going to handle everything else. That's an example of how the government tries to take a large contract and also make it possible for smaller firms to have an opportunity doing it through that process. Real quick, James, are there any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Okay, recipe for success. So this one, we usually get questions because some of the things that this thing covers. So this slide is really talking about what does it take to start the process of having success with government contracting. And first off, you have to be established, meaning you've had to already gotten your business license, your certifications, all those things that show I am in business, I am ready to go. Second, having a business plan that focuses on how you're going to do business with the government is important. I personally believe that you should always have a business plan. I know a lot of people think that and feel that they want to work on a business plan and get their business going and develop it as they go. But I think starting off, doing some research in the beginning, developing that plan, I think that's a better option. Financial stability, this is really important because most times, and I would say 90% of the time, when the government purchases something, they put out, whether it's a purchase order or the RFP contract, you do the work, then you get paid. So you could be looking at 30 days, 60 days, even I've heard 90 days before you get paid by the government. And so you've got to be able to carry that funding until you receive payment, which can be a challenge. So making sure you have financial stability is important. And then this one, past performance, is really key. The government, by and large, is of course made up of individuals who are charged with buying products and services to achieve goals, missions within that agency, whatever that agency is. And one of the things that they're risk adverse, meaning they would prefer always to do business with a firm that can show they have past performance, whether that's past performance selling or doing business with a government agency or selling and doing business with a larger private firm that they may recognize or they can at least reach out to and get a reference from to show that you have done work. These things are important. So if you are competing for an opportunity to do business with a government agency and it's your firm with no history of sales at all versus all these other firms with some history, they're always going to win. So getting past performance is really important. And then, of course, market research. We have the federal government, which spends what's it, $600-700 billion a year with businesses. We've got all of these states. So there's 50 states, and then all of the counties and cities and school districts within these states, not including transportation agencies. So doing business with the government is extremely huge market. And market research helps you identify where should you focus your energy, because you really can't say, I'm going to do business with these 10 federal agencies, these 6 states, and these 20 cities. You've got to break that down and figure out where you should be focusing your time and energy. And then the final one is your website kind of set up so that you're at least letting the government know that you are open and you want to do business with the government? So is it kind of government friendly? Okay, how to get started. So we talked about applying for PTAC. This is a free service, so it's a good idea to get some help, some knowledge from these counselors. Second is choosing the right NAICS and UNSPSC codes. Just a quick thing, NAICS codes are codes that the government, federal, city, states, they all kind of agree with these codes. They're used to help understand and identify industry and products. A quick example is in the marketing industry, right? You could be a marketing consultant, that's one code. But if you're also an advertising agency, that would be a different code similar to that one. So it might be 54121, another one might be 54125. So these codes really help the contracting officers within government select exactly what they want to hire using NAICS codes. And UNSPSC codes are just a longer code. It's the same thing, but it's a little bit more broken down. Registering on Cal eProcure. This is for those that want to do business with the state of California. This is the main website to sign up and do business with the state of California. SAM.gov is for the federal government. Before you can start applying and hoping to win contracts on the federal level, you have to be registered in SAM, and they would issue you a UEI and a CAGE code. And then along with the federal government, you want to complete your dynamic small business search. And that's the information that would be within there. The final one is creating a capability statement. We will cover that in more detail later on in the webinar. So I'll save that for that. And making sure, again, your website is government friendly. James, any questions as of now, or?
We do have one excellent question. What is the best way to establish communication with prime contractors?
Okay, I won't say there's one best way, but I will say one of the things you definitely want to do is reach out to prime contractors before there is an opportunity. Quick example, let's say you are in the, and I'm going to go with the most popular, like a janitorial or in something like janitorial, and you want to work with a prime that can provide you with opportunities because they get larger contracts from the government and you want to provide them with their janitorial services. You want to reach out to them not when the RFP comes out, but before that. So building the relationships with them is always important, and you do that as soon as you identify a prime that you want to do business with. Using the capability statement is something that they also love. They want to see your capability statement, but they have other tools. For example, most primes will have on their website a vendor sign up database. So you want to go to their website and see if they have their own requirements for how to do business with, name that prime. And usually it's some kind of vendor registration portal on their own website. So I would start there.
All right, great answer. Thanks, Thomas. That's all we have for now.
All right, so socioeconomic certifications. Here's one that can be confusing to somebody who's just starting off and learning about how to do business with the government. These are designed to be an asset, something that helps you with the competition when you're going after opportunities with the government, and your competitors might be larger firms that can't get these certifications. So as a small business, the state of California has 3 certifications: the SB, the SB for Public Works, and the DVBE for disabled veterans. On the federal side, you have these listings, and I think there's even one more, but basically the SB and the small disadvantaged business is the self-certifying one. So when you register in SAM and you answer the questions correctly based on your small business status, then you're automatically going to receive this SB or SDB certification. A lot of times people don't realize that they already have a certification when they register in SAM, and they're under the assumption that they don't have one yet, and they need to go out and get either an 8A or a women-owned or a veteran-owned or a DBE, which is with Caltrans. But in reality, a lot of times they already do have a self-certifying small business certification. But all of these are designed to give you help against larger firms. Now, of course, the challenge is if there are 50,000 small businesses within your classification, and again, I'll just use janitorial as an example. If there are 50,000 janitorial firms that are also 8A firms or also HUBZone or women-owned, then you're always still going to have competition. But at least you can compete in that fair market space versus competing against a multi-million-dollar firm. And again, local contracting, I think this is where the greatest opportunity is for small businesses. When we talk about local, we're talking about wherever you're located. If your business is located in, as an example, Alameda County, then you want to focus on the cities, the counties, the school districts, and transportation agencies that are within your own county. That's the best opportunity to build relationships, learn who these contracting officers are, learn who these other decision makers regarding contracting opportunities, whether it's a small contract of 10,000 or less, or a large contract of 500,000 or 400,000. You know, that's the area where I believe if you're looking to really do business and start off successfully, local contracting is the gateway into other opportunities. Talking about local contracting, again, the counties, if you go to their website, you're going to see that they have their own procurement pages. And in fact, on our NorCal PTAC site under resources, we have a great link called local contracting, and we provide you with links that go directly to the county, the city, and transportation agencies procurement page, how to do business with us page. Let's see, I think any questions on local contracting?
Not as of now, but just a reminder, folks can enter those questions into the Q&A.
Okay, yeah, I just want to stress that I think this is a great opportunity for those who are starting off. Okay, now we're going to talk about the capability statement. And this is a very key document for government and for prime contractors. This was created many, many years ago. And what it does, the capability statement helps the contracting officer understand almost immediately who you are, what you do, what your codes are, where you're located, how long you've been in business. And so it's a tool that they kind of created to help them quickly understand if this is a company I want to do business with. And so the capability statement has a definite format. In fact, let me jump to the format. This is the example that we provide our clients. And as you can see, it's really laid out, right? At the top left side, capability statement. It's anywhere from a 3 to 5 sentence narrative. Who am I? What do I do? And why should government care about me? and then my core competencies. What are the things that I really focus on? And then what makes me different? Who are my key clients? And what's really important is if you have past performance, my past performance. As you can see, it expands on to the second page. And then on the right side there, it's how it's broken down so they can quickly see your codes. They can see a quick company snapshot, your certifications, and contact information. Now, there are dozens of templates out there, but they all have the same general format, right? And the goal is to make it easy for the contracting officer because they get dozens and dozens of these or hundreds of these, right? And so they want to quickly see who you are, what you do, and if you're the kind of firm that I should keep as a in my folder, so if I need your services, I can reach out to you. We spend a lot of time working with our clients, helping them get ready and helping them create their capability statement forms. All right, contracting ready website. So as you can see here, these are the things that you really want to focus on when you create that one section of your website showing the government, hey, I want to do business with you. All right, you want to have a government's tab, and on that tab, or once they click on that, of course, you want to have your capability statement that they can download. You want to show all of your registrations and certifications, highlighting some past performance, maybe even having some references or testimonials available. Make it easy to navigate. You don't want it too long. We don't really, as procurement specialists, we're not, quote, experts in website design and all that. So that's not our strength, but we can show you examples of quality other firms that have a really good contracting ready website or link. And then my favorite is marketing to the government. One of the biggest challenges startups or companies that are just breaking into the government contracting space is in marketing. Excuse me. A lot of the firms that we run into and that utilize our service, they don't have a large marketing budget. It's not like you have a crew of 2-3 people that handle marketing and 2-3 people that handle sales. Usually you're dealing with the owner, who's maybe one other person who's responsible for all marketing and all sales. So I recognize this is a challenge because it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. However, what we're able to show you here is, first thing is to figure out what agencies within that government do you want to focus on and why should you? As an example, let's say you are in the food business, just as an example. Then you want to start doing research on where your opportunities really exist. If you're in the janitorial space, or if you're in the pick another, construction, right? You're a welder, or you're in the electrical space or the plumbing space. Where are your opportunities for success? There are several websites that are available for free that can help you understand where you should be focusing. Another thing you want to do is attend matchmaking events, attend conferences, attend expos. Whether it's a city, whether it's a university, a state agency or a state government or a federal agency, they all on their websites, they all will talk about, hey, here's how we reach out to the small business community. We either have expos, we have matchmaking events, we have conferences, and these are virtual versus these are in person. They all have that. They also offer training. And when you're talking about the government, training is always free when it's coming from the government. So the state of California, when they offer training, it's always offered free. If the city of San Francisco or the county of LA, they offer training, it's always offered free. So those are opportunities that you can always utilize to learn about that agency, figure out who are the decision makers, what do they buy, how much do they buy, and when do they buy. All this information is available at no cost. It just requires time. I love LinkedIn in terms of social media for the government, because in my experience, I haven't run into a government entity that is not on LinkedIn. I don't care if it's a city, university, the federal government, from what I've learned so far, and I could be wrong, but so far, every single agency loves LinkedIn. They love to have a LinkedIn page, and the employers within that government entity also are on LinkedIn. And then one of the most important things you want to look for is the small business representative. They're called various names. In the state of California, they're called small business advocates. On the federal side, they're called small business specialists. And then with primes, they're called supplier diversity managers, right? If you want to do business with Apple, as an example, they would have a supplier diversity manager or managers and a whole department devoted to doing business with small businesses via supplier diversity. So those are key representatives that will help you. They're like the go-between. They represent the contracting officers within the government, and they work with the small businesses, and their goal is to kind of bring people together. And finally, the dynamic small business search is a tool devised by the Small Business Administration. And again, it's for federal. It's not related to local and state. It's ideal for federal government. Now, where to find bid opportunities? James mentioned that NorCal PTAC has a bid match system. Another thing on Cali Procure, if you're looking to do business with the state of California, they have on their events, they have a listing that, of course, is always updated. Also, when you sign up, whether it's with the state of California, a county, a city, or even a university, they have a notification system that you can apply for. Within the notification system, you tell them your next codes, you tell them keywords, and as a bid opportunity becomes available that matches the service or products that you do, you'll receive a notification email from that agency letting you know. Now, it does require you to become a registered vendor, but once you do that, then you can sign up for the notifications. So I have clients that are registered with 20 different cities because they want to focus on cities within a certain area in California. And that's their focus. That's all they talk to is just cities. Other clients, they may only focus on universities, and they sign up for all the different universities, and they sign up to get notifications from all of them. On the federal side, sam.gov, they have, hold on, excuse me one second. On sam.gov, they have contracting opportunities. And from my experience, not every single federal agency lists all of their opportunities on SAM, but I'd say at least 80% do. If you want some help understanding some training on how to really do really good deep dive research on sam.gov, that's another opportunity where you could utilize NorCal PTAC. Acquisition.gov is a free website that's managed by the federal government. And what it does, on the federal side, all federal agencies are mandated to provide what's called a procurement forecast. A procurement forecast is, and usually comes out as an Excel spreadsheet, but it tells the business community, let's say it's DOD. DOD wants to purchase this amount of construction equipment over the next 12 to 18 months or 12 months to 24 months. And here's the contracting officers that are going to be buying it. And this is what we believe we're going to need over that next 2 years. It's a forecast projections of what they want to buy. You can always access that at acquisition.gov. If you're in construction, then you definitely want to talk to the associations like Builders Exchange. And of course, just remind you about our BitMat system. A quick summary. The 10 steps to start your process of being ready to go after government contracting. Making sure you're ready. And we covered that, right? You want to make sure you're financially able so that if you win a contract, you understand that they pay, you do the work, you get paid later. Looking at NorCal PTAC or any PTAC for an opportunity to get some help and services that are due you because our tax dollars pay for this service. Getting your checklist, making sure you understand about marketing, making sure you understand, where do you want to focus your energy? Because the government is such a huge marketplace. It's much more of a tool to focus on a certain entity or agency than try to say, I'm going to do business with as many as possible. Also getting certified, right? If you have the ability and if you qualify, you should definitely get certified. Creating your capability statement, updating your website, all these things listed are necessary steps, in my opinion, before you start the process of really going hard to market and figure out and going after government contracting. Wanted to quickly give a quick update on this is who we are at NorCal PTAC. And I'm ready to answer any questions. James, did you want to take over about our upcoming events?
Yeah, we just we had some questions from folks about events as well, so it's a nice topical lead point. We are putting on more events this year. This doesn't actually list all of them in December. Just want to give you a little flavor of what's coming down the pike. DCAA overview and audit process. This is the federal government talking about how they audit government contractors. That's going to be really in-depth information for those of you who already have your feet wet there. That's November 17th at 10 a.m. Our construction procurement specialist, Ed Duarte, is going to be giving a webinar in partnership with the Port of San Francisco about what to do once you've landed a construction contract. So again, more of an intermediate webinar for folks, and that's a 2-hour webinar starting at 4 p.m. on the same day. So it's going to be a long day hosting these. And then we have preparing you for cybersecurity government regulation, and that's on December 1st. So that's going to be broadly relevant for anyone doing business that involves data that could be sensitive data, especially with the federal government as they are rolling out new cybersecurity requirements in various stages. So eventually everyone doing business with the feds will have to abide by a certain set of rules of cybersecurity. And not just that, just cybersecurity affects everybody because we do business in the digital world these days. So I hope to find you at those events in the future. We got plenty of time for questions here, so let's dive right in. Let me just go ahead and advance the slide once. Oops. Bridget is asking, do we need the WOSB certification?
No, you don't need it. I would say if you qualify for it, it is a good tool, right? It's an opportunity to help you in terms of being competitive. It's all about being competitive. The women-owned small business certification can take a process. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it does take some time. It of course, it's free, there's no cost, but they require a lot of paperwork. The government is concerned with making sure that if they award a certification, that it's being awarded correctly to the right type of agency, or I'm sorry, company. And so they ask for a lot of documentation before they award a certification.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lyle McDonald's asking, what information would be shown on a company site under the government tab?
What information would be shown under the government's tab? So if you like, we could quickly go and look at that page again. Here we go. So you want to show your capability statement. You want to highlight your registrations and certifications if you have any. You want to list your NAICS codes, your UNSPSC codes. If you've been around for a while, meaning you've been in business for 2-3 years and you have past performance, you want to highlight those things. If you have testimonials from some of the people that you've done business with, you want to show that. You just want to use this government tab to highlight your work, your expertise, and that you are ready to do business with the government.
I can put some examples in the chat. Thomas, these actually came from you that we've...
some of the websites that we found that have great contracting ready.
Yeah, nice look at, it's not an endorsement by any means of this company who we don't know, but for instance, it doesn't look like that link is working. So 1 second, I dropped it in the chat. Can I open? Okay, well, it's not quite. Try that.
I think the ones I used were some of the firms that the owners were from the military. So they're like service disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. And they wanted to really highlight that because they want to focus on doing business with the Veterans Administration. If you guys don't know, the Veterans Administration is mandated by law to, whenever they want to buy anything, they have to first look for a veteran-owned business or a service-disabled veteran-owned business. If they can't find a veteran-owned business to provide them with window washing or with tools for the hospital or some kind of service like a leadership training, then they can go outside of that scope. But it's a great opportunity for veteran-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses to make sure their website is prominent so that the VA and anybody that wants to do business with a veteran-owned business knows immediately, hey, this is a veteran-owned business. Okay, I'm impressed and I want to reach out to them.
Great. All right, thanks, Thomas. I dropped a couple links in the chat just so folks can take a look at what an example of a good, they're both slightly different versions of the government contracting tab on the website. Brian is asking, how does the 8A certification differ from the others?
Oh, okay. The 8A is a unique program because it is a 9-year program. And it's not just a certification. They actually provide you with training and assistance. The overall goal is for minority-owned firms. And the goal is to take you from where you are when you are accepted in the program. And they want you to become, basically, by the 9th year, a large corporation. They want you to be large enough so that you're not a small business anymore. That's the main goal of the program. It's kind of unique in that it has a different classification and different mindset of what it's trying to achieve for the members who are 8A small businesses. So it combines training with the opportunity to get set-aside contracts as a small business.
Great. All right. Thanks, Thomas. We have a question in the chat here. Jenny's asking, what are the requirements of being a small business certified in California? We have 2 officers in multiple states, including offices in 2 different states.
what is a requirement for being a certified small business with the state of California?
That's right.
Oh, okay. By and large, they need to prove that they're a quote small business based on the state of California's classification. So within the state of California, I believe you have to have a net worth in terms of your business under, I don't remember the exact number, to be honest with you. It's a high number, right? It might be $1 million as an example. If your business did less than $1 million, but again, the exact number is definitely on the link that takes you. So they on the I wish we had the link right in our this form, but we don't. But when you go to Cali Procure, you can go and click on
Dropping it in there right now.
How to register as a certified small business or DVBE. And within that, it tells you exactly. I don't know the exact dollar amount, to be honest.
I just dropped the link in the chat right there.
Yeah. The other thing that's really important, though, you have to be living. You have to be a resident of California. So I've had clients that were residents of Baltimore, but they have an office in California, and they wanted to register. They didn't get the certification. They didn't get the certification as a small business because their headquarters was in Baltimore. So your headquarters and your personal residence, you have to be in California. That's the other key thing.
Right. Yeah. It looks like California is saying for the SB certification, non-public works, you need less than 100 employees, including affiliates. And you need a average gross annual receipts, GAR, a cap over the last 3 tax years, including affiliates, of less than 16 million. And that does not apply to manufacturers. So there's a different set of rules for manufacturers.
Right.
So
yeah. It's a wide area. I mean, they give you a lot of leeway.
Yeah, if you have 99 employees and you make $15 million a year, you would still be a small business according to California.
Yeah.
As well as for the federal government as well, which is so the caps are pretty high. You're competing against other small businesses who are still pretty large. All right. We don't have any more questions in the Q&A or the chat right now. We can go ahead and wrap it up a bit early unless someone else has any questions for Thomas while we have him. All right, well, thank you so much. You should be redirected towards a short satisfaction survey. We love getting feedback. We're not just saying that. It's really important to us to know how our webinars are going. If you're getting something out of it, we put these on for free and we want them to be as beneficial to you as possible. So you can do it. It takes a couple minutes. You can do it anonymously. We're getting a lot of thanks. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Bridget. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Natalia. Thanks, Kim. And of course, thanks everyone else. And thanks so much, Thomas, for putting this together.
Everybody have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, we'll see you at the next webinar. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.